Hey Cloud Gamers, Cyberpunk 2077 has received yet another patch, now at 1.05, so we're having a look at the Series X versus Google Stadia to see the differences that have been made, both on speed and the performance and quality modes. Starting off with the speed test here then, if you're not interested in the speed test you can skip straight to the first part of the comparison. But we can see here that Google Stadia is definitely lagging behind here with the extra check on the startup here, as the Xbox Series X is already into the main menu screen and loading up the game. And the Series X really is super fast here for Cyberpunk in at the game, so fully loaded and playable at 41 seconds. With Stadia just loading through to the main screen there at 51 seconds and then proceeding to the game load. So you can see the Series X moving around here, but that really is phenomenally fast and Stadia is not too far behind. At just under 111 then into the game and playable. So still absolutely phenomenal from both sides to be under a minute and a half from load to play. Starting off with the graphics comparisons then, we're going to start with a quick blind test here so you can see which one is which.
So what do you want?
And Google Stadia is at the top with the Series X at the bottom. The left side is the performance mode and on the right side is quality. Now for some reason on Stadia this is called high frame rate or visuals. As we freeze here we can see a very clear difference, especially on Stadia, between the performance and the quality modes, whereas the Series X is not as great between performance and visuals, but you can definitely see, looking at the background especially, that the visuals mode is higher fidelity here. Both the quality or high frame rate mode on Stadia is capped at 30 frames per second. As we look at the Series X here with the performance and quality mode side by side, you can see it's much more difficult to tell the difference here. Performance mode being able to handle that 60 frames per second, whereas the visuals is capped at 30. But looking here, the difference is minimal, so if you are looking for the high frame rate, then it's definitely worth going for performance mode on the Series X. As we do the same thing on Stadia then, that difference between the performance mode and quality or visuals and high frame rate is much more obvious here. You can see the blurriness around the face here and the background detail is nowhere near as high as on the quality modes here. Especially as Jackie comes into frame there, we can see just how blurry his model is. And then as we look at the Series X and Google Stadia side by side in their quality modes, looking at the model in the background, you can see that the quality is slightly better on the Series X, but there really is not a lot in it. And when we're getting that bit of motion, they're both looking around the same. As we put the gun to his head here, looking at Jackie in the background, it's very close. But when we go to that performance mode, you'll see as we're moving around, the frames per second is definitely higher, making a smoother image. But that performance mode is hugely different between the Series X and Stadia. Just look at the face here, it's so blurry on performance mode. And again, as we go into the gun section, looking at Jackie in the background here, he is so much clearer on the Series X than he is on the Stadia side. As we freeze here across the board then, showing all four side by side, again we see that massive difference on the Google Stadia performance side, whereas the performance and quality modes on the Series X is, I would say, negligible here. Looking at the face close up, we can see slightly better quality on the visual side for the Series X, but it is very tight. We're going to dive into a bit of full screen gameplay in each mode here on each platform, starting with the Series X in quality mode. So we can see in that movement, again, it's capped at that 30 frames per second. But quality wise, everything does look extremely good up close, and the effects from the gun and the explosions there are very high quality. As we're moving around there, we can see the bullet effects as well as the mist effect here very clearly. As we move over to the performance mode, we can straight away see that increase in frames per second. We can see a slight drop in the quality of the particle effects around the mist there. And some of the visuals here look a little bit over bright in comparison, and when we're looking at the gun model, we definitely don't see as high a detail. But generally everything else, the effects from the guns there, if you didn't have the mode up in front of you, you probably wouldn't be able to tell that you were running in performance mode here. And in the heat of battle, those frames per second do make quite a big difference, and it just makes it feel a lot smoother. And looking at those gun effects coming through the doorway there really is not a lot in it. As we go over to the Stadia performance mode, full screen, we can see there is a bit of a quality drop, but when you're moving around quite quickly, it's not as noticeable. But if you look at the gun model, it definitely doesn't look as crisp as the other modes. As we come through the door there, you can see a little bit of graphics pop in and sharpening as it focuses there, and just a little bit of blurriness on the environment as we're moving around quite quickly. It's a lot more obvious when we're looking at the character models, but again, when you're jumping around and shooting, you're not really focusing on the quality of the models here. As we move over to the quality mode, we can definitely see that drop in frames per second, but we see a marked improvement on the actual visual quality itself, just the gun model and the hands there. The character model in the distance is so much clearer here. Once again, seeing that bullet spray is absolutely phenomenal. And definitely a huge improvement over the Stadia performance mode. Again, as we're moving around, you can definitely tell that 30 frames per second here, but for the visual performance on Stadia, it's definitely worth a hit. As we come back all side by side then, we can see that huge quality difference on the performance side versus quality. And as we come in front of the Militech lady, we can see the difference in those character models. Performance mode really does look so much worse here. Across the quality mode on Stadia and the Series X, there is not much in it. Especially if you look in the van at the character model in the back seat there, they are all looking around the same. So in visuals mode, the Series X is just slightly better, but really negligible against Stadia here. But the performance mode on the Series X really does make a huge difference. You get pretty much the same quality, but with that 60 frames per second. So it really will be interesting when both Stadia and Series X do their next gen performance upgrades, and also when Cyberpunk adds its next gen upgrade for the Series X, we'll be definitely looking at this again. Let us know where you're going to be playing, whether it be Stadia, the Series X, or another cloud platform. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest across all cloud gaming platforms, and we will see you next time.